Chapter 7, Epilogue. With the short autumn season at its end, the kingdom of Natra was in the dead of winter. Ninim looked out the window in the hallway, able to make out the mountain range in the distance buried under the snow. In time, even the flatter lands of the urban areas farther away from the mountains would be blanketed under its whiteness. In fact, her breath was already white as it fogged up the window pane. She was about to wipe it away with her fingers when someone called out to her. "Oh, it's the aide," said one of the officials, sauntering toward her from the other side of the hallway. Ninim turned her gaze away from the window. Perfect timing. Our emergency supplies for the winter were just delivered. And here are the reports. Thank you. She took the reports from the official and scanned them. I see. With the visit from the envoys, I was worried how things would turn out when we had to delay our preparations. But this will be just fine. Agreed. We should be able to make it through winter. I guess our only regret is about how the potential marriage between the imperial princess and His Highness panned out. The official sighed. To think an emergency in the empire would cause them to shelve it. Though a series of unexpected incidents had cropped up, the envoys managed to make a safe trip back to the empire. Around the same time, news of a revolt in the making had spread across the empire, triggering turmoil in each territory under its rule. The chaos was ongoing, making it an unsuitable time for the imperial princess to talk about marriage. All discussion was to be suspended until the affairs of state were in order. And many subjects in Natra found this terribly disappointing. Absolutely, Ninim replied mildly, but her mind replayed the events that had happened before then. Farewell, for the time being. Going back to the time before the delegation made their journey home. Ninim and Lowell Mina were sitting across from each other, circling a small table. Wine was absent at this private tea party for the two of them. I was saved by you and wine, through all the complications. Thank you. No need. I did what I had to do. As cool-headed as ever. But that's just another reason why I like you, Ninim. Yeah. Thanks, Ninim responded curtly. By the way, Loa, is it true? Is what true? That you've put the discussion about marriage on hold. Oh, Lowell Mina understood. Well, to expand my influence within the empire, it's more beneficial for me to remain single than marry foreign royalty. Plus, if I say it's suspended because of the impending revolt, no one will find it suspicious, she reasoned with no trouble at all. Ninim groaned back. But you like wine, right? The cup in Lowell Mina's hand tumbled onto the desk with a loud clang. Loa picked it up as if nothing had happened. Well, sure. As a friend. I mean, as a woman. The hand trembled slightly, clutching the teacup. What? Oh, come on. Why would I? Why do I have to like that weirdo? Who did you hear that from? All right, put the cup down. Your clothes will get dirty, Ninim suggested. Lowell Mina obliged. After a long silence between them, she asked timidly, terrified of the answer. Since when? Since we were in school. Was I an open book? Pretty much. Lowell Mina buried her face in her hands and looked down. Her ears were bright red. To get her envoys and lead them to Natra, Lowell Mina had a few supposed grounds for her visit. In the public eye, she was a member of the delegation. Behind closed doors, she was here to discuss marriage. Beyond that facade, she'd come to solicit Wine's help to become empress. And that was a bluff to save the empire from distress by making herself bait. But in the end, that wasn't the truth. In her heart of hearts, she'd wanted to be an envoy to learn more about Natra, thought that it might be nice if she could marry Wine, and wanted his help in becoming empress. Which meant every last reason for her visit turned out to be her true intentions all along. Well, not that we realized until much later, Ninim admitted. Lowell Mina's face finally regained its composure. I admit it. I do feel that way. But I don't mind this outcome. As the imperial princess? That's a part of it. How should I phrase this? I like Wine, but I like you just as much. Ninim blinked at this unexpected response. Well, I don't feel the same way. That's not what I meant. Right. Call it admiration. I've always admired the relationship between the two of you. One was royalty, the other a member of an oppressed people. By all rights, the two should have been incompatible, but they knew they could always count on each other. For Lowell Mina, who'd known their true identities back in their school days, it was a sight both odd and precious. There were so many times I wanted to be a part of your little circle. For it to be the three of us, not two. But with this series of events, I've come to the realization that I'm not good enough to join your ranks just yet. That's why I'm fine with the way things turned out. This was Lowell Mina's heart laid bare. Because she treasured them so greatly, she felt like she wasn't worthy. Ninim, I will reign as Empress. Without question. And when I've become your equal, I intend to join you too as your third, she declared between the two of them. It was no jest. Lowell Mina was showing her truest feelings. Ninim gave a small nod and smiled. In that case, there's not much else to say. As your friend, I cheer you on. And that's all I ask. After that, they chatted for as long as time allowed, certain they would meet again. Is something the matter? The official was calling to her. Ninim pulled out of her thoughts, returning to herself with a start. Apologies. It seems I'm still a bit drowsy. Thank you for the reports. I'll bring these to His Highness. Please. Ninim headed to the office as the official saw her off. Upon returning to the capital, the first thing Lowell Mina did was make the necessary arrangements for the vassals. She'd obtained evidence of plans for the revolt, plus witnesses. But if she just revealed this information to the public, it would likely invite the ire of those with plans to participate. That was why she was going to contact trusted vassals, confide in them, and weaken those participating in the rebellion. She had to hurry, but she couldn't rush. This was the balance that she had to strike. Lowell Mina steadily found allies among the vassals. Making good progress, Princess Lowell Mina, Fish commented, pleased. Lowell Mina answered with a nod. But this intel will leak out bit by bit. It won't be long before chaos engulfs the entire empire. We have to be prepared before that happens. Understood, Fish replied, obediently. Looking at her, Lowell Mina pondered. As Fish had noted, things were going well. But it wasn't by her power alone. She looked back on the moment when she parted with Wine. Wine, I imagine you had other strategies that were less complicated. Isn't that true? Their plan had been a success, to break Grynehe's will and force him to swear allegiance to Lowell Mina. But now that it was all over, Lowell Mina didn't believe that had been his only scheme. Like, what if I'd sent Grynehe to spy on the revolt, and Geralt was murdered by a conspirator as a result? Then you could have persuaded Grynehe without tarnishing his child's legacy. Or you could have abducted Grynehe to interrogate him. Wine answered her questions with ease. I considered something along those lines, but I knew it would be easier to control him if we broke his spirit. Right, Loa? An unexpected answer. Grynehe was loyal to Lowell Mina now. He wasn't likely to show any antagonism toward her for the time being. Even though it benefited Lowell Mina, Wine had nothing to gain from it. She looked at Wine as she thought through this, and he cracked a tiny smile. I made a promise back then. If I can't escape, I'll probably end up lending a hand or two. Oh, a shiver ran up her spine. Well, that's about as far as I go. Dear best from here on out, Miss Future Empress. Of course. She hadn't been the only one who had remembered and treasured that trivial conversation, the one that she held so dear. And more than anything else, that made Lowell Mina happy. I vow to see things through to the end. Her friend had laid out this much for her. To properly respond, that was the true meaning of friendship. Besides, one more thing concerns me about that day. When Lowell Mina had been troubled, Wine had told her that the real enemy was the cultural ideologies of the people. Looking back on it, she had a feeling that it hadn't been an off-the-cuff remark. It had to be something he'd been thinking about for some time. And when she'd requested his cooperation, Wine had refused, citing that there were things he had to do. In terms of cultural ideas that he would potentially take a stand against, she could only think of one thing: the discrimination against the Flom. This was nothing more than conjecture. She'd tried to sound out Ninim at their farewell tea party, but Ninim didn't give off any hints that she knew what Wine was up to. But it was certainly possible for Wine to do something about it. He would put together a plan to slaughter the fearsome beast lurking on the continent, all for one girl. Also, she could live her life undeterred by anyone. Let's say that's true. If I get wrapped up in this somehow, she would oppose that beast alongside him. just as he had done for her. In order to do that, she first had to concentrate on the fight before her. Fish, what's next on my schedule? You have a meeting with the minister in the afternoon. It had been half a year since the Emperor of Earth-World passed away from illness. Princess Lowelmina had spread the word of the plans for an uprising against the Empire. When the factions had discovered that she had successfully laid the groundwork to prevent it, and the three princes had fallen into its trap, too preoccupied with their own little dispute to notice, they were swamped with tension and political purging. As a result, their factions became less unified as some left to join Lowelmina. Lowelmina Earth-World became the head of her own faction and made her debut in imperial politics, taking center stage. Ugh. I'm pooped. Wine huffed out a long sigh as he released all strength, propped up by his office desk. I can't believe this all started with a potential marriage proposal and ended with a trip to the Garen state. Loa had you at her mercy, Ninim commented with a wry smile. If there was a winner in all this chaos, it was Lowelmina, without a doubt. The road had been a long one, but she had achieved exactly what she set out to do. Well, it's not so bad. Everything worked out in the end. You say that, but I was working for free. All those hours unpaid. The Empire might be covering the cost of the military exercises, but hosting their envoys? We've got to be in the red. Red. But Nanaki stole important documents from the Antgadol mansion, in addition to the other evidence. We'll be able to use those to leverage a deal with the Marquis to sell us mirror-dyed textiles wholesale. And? We'll break even at best. Besides, Loa's camp has taken over Antgadol's territory, which means trading with them will only make it look like we're siding with her faction. You say, as though it's not already far too late. It's not. We're neutral. No relation to Empire infighting. Wine's stubbornness took the reins on this one. Ninim spoke with nonchalance. What if you married Lowelmina and dove into their politics headfirst? If you win the factional war, I bet you'll be able to live the slow, easy life of your dreams. Loa already called the marriage off. That's what she wants. What about you? Wine shrugged. Think about it. We have no idea how good her odds are of winning this thing. But let's say she does. Do you honestly think she'll let me retire? Yeah, no. Right? There's no question I'd get wrapped up in one problem after another. I'd end up busier than ever before. I'm gonna do everything I can to avoid that. It'll be a struggle to stand on equal footing with him, Loa, Ninim muttered, letting out a quiet sigh. Next to her, Wine started up again. At any rate, we'll steer back to where things were now that the delegation is gone. And keep an eye out for any changes in the Empire, too, of course. Agreed. In that case, Ninim deposited a mountain of papers in front of Wine with a thud. What's this? Documents awaiting your approval, piling up ever since your trip to the Garen state. And petitions from each department put on hold during the delegation stay. And I've booked your next 2 weeks to meet with prominent figures. We have plenty ahead of us. Oh, and because your marriage with Loa fell through, I'm sure there will be aristocrats getting all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, pushing their daughters on you to take as your consorts. If you don't want to be married, I advise doing your best to avoid them. Ninim grinned. Well, let's get to work as usual. I just want to sell this country off and get the hell out of here. His lamenting whines echoed far and wide on and on and on.